Welcome back. This is Urdizzle with a little walkthrough of Disc Golf Valley's most recent course, Lost Island. This is the 15th course in the game, and it is a fantastic addition. I love it. It's not quite my favorite yet, but it is pretty good. And I will start you guys off with the discs that I'll be using. This is my normal bag. So start you off with the fairway drivers, my Roll Accurate Explorer, great disc. Love the roll attribute, how it grabs the ground. I've got a pair of muskets, my Accurate Windbreak and my Accurate Glide, both great discs. Both are good ace running. They serve their purpose. They're different enough for me that I can use both. My Glide Wind Recoil, which I've tried to take out of the bag many times. It just keeps working its way back in. The Wind Skip Recoil, which has been a more recent addition. And then the three Ballista Pros, the Roll Glide, the Light Glide, and the Glide Skip. So those are three discs that are in most high-end bags, and of course I've got them in there. And then on top of those 8, I've got my utility discs. I've got my 2 putters, the Accurate Sticky Keystone, which I use for forehand throw-ins a lot, the Accurate Glide Pure, which doesn't get a lot of action, but I pull it out every now and then my fuses, my Accurate Windbreak Fuse, which is my main putter, and then my Accurate Glide Fuse. And we'll start off on hole 1, and as we're watching the flyover for hole 1, I just want to be clear that this is not an exhaustive list of all the shots that you can throw on all these holes. These are just strategies, ways you can approach them. For example, here, hole 1, you will notice I will use my Roll Glide Ballista Pro, and everything is sped up to double speed because I tried to record more shots so you can see a variety. So you will notice everything is sped up to double speed. So again, this is just a couple examples of my Roll Glide. But again, this is not an exhaustive list of all the shots. It's just the shots that I would use, strategies you can use. There are some creative shots that I am not going to put in here. I'm going to kind of let you guys explore a little bit and see what you can find out. But this should give you a pretty good idea of how to attack these holes. So those first 2 shots you saw were with the Glide Roll Ballista Pro. The recent one was with my Wind Glide Recoil. And that one right there was actually with my Glide Skip Ballista Pro forehand. The reason I did that is because the wind was right to left 3. So there is a wide right. That is really weird. So I tried to do just a straddle without the walk around putt, and it did not work out very well. So you can go that wide left route. I don't really recommend that because you do bring the trees and the out of bounds into play, but it is an option if you're not comfortable with the right to left wind. If you really want to ace this hole, which you can ace it with the Glide Skip Ballista Pro, which I tried there and just didn't get a good skip, you can kind of aim out wide. And right there I use the Light Glide Ballista, and so I learned from that previous lack of made putts where I didn't get around the tree that's something you gotta kind of work your way around. So you can use these bigger discs, but you run the risk of going long. Now, most of those didn't go too long. They were still within 50 feet putting range, but it's very, very easy if you use the Light Glide or the Glide Skip to go too long. So right there, you'll notice there is one tree out to the right. So that one right there. And I tried to hit it, and I actually went through. That's really the only obstacle you have to worry about. I mean, you've got a couple little rocks and out of bounds. And even over here, you've got the out of bounds and play on the left. But that one tree to the right is really the only one you have to worry about. So for my money, I like throwing the Glide Roll Ballista Pro because you can kind of turn it over. You don't need to worry about the out of bounds left, and you can kind of take the tree out of play. So that is hole 1. All right, hole 2, the flyover is going to kind of work us through the middle here, and you're going to find that I actually don't really recommend that route. I think it's a little bit harder, but it does give you a chance for ace runs. So the gap I recommend is over here to the right. Got a little opening. It's a very reasonable opening to hit. And even if you don't make it all the way through, it does kind of filter down to the opening, the landing area there. So even if you hit and roll down, you'll be within 100, 120 feet. I mean, not a gimme, but it's definitely a reasonable shot. So these first 2 shots you saw me throw were with the Glide Roll Ballista Pro. I think in most winds, other than strong headwinds like this one, that's the disc. If I get a strong headwind, I'll bump up to my Light Glide Ballista Pro. And let's be honest, guys, if you don't have the big drivers, this walkthrough is not going to really do anything for you. If you're trying to 3-star this with muskets or, I don't know, pioneers and things like that, and your name is not Johnny, you're probably not going to get a 3-star on this. I mean, you can do it, but most average players, if you don't have the drivers, there's no point in messing around with this. So I'm not going to try to show you how to par these. I'm going to show you the strategies for getting birdies. All right, so right there, you can, if you want, you can take the left route. That was my Light Glide Ballista Pro. You can also use the, I suppose you could use this. And that was the Light Glide, and I did not mean to throw that backhand. So I decided the second one there I did. The first one I just forgot to switch it to forehand. That was my bad. But it's something you can definitely get there if you do forehand. I mean, it's very reasonable. Again, it's nice to have a second shot at your disposal depending on the wind. I guess you could also use the Glide Skip Ballista Pro here forehand. And that's a pretty good shot. That's an ace. All right. Was not trying to do that. That's kind of risky because if you miss that, you're probably going in the water long right. And that is the glide roll. Oh, just got it up there. So you got to be a little more careful if you're going to use the glide roll or something other than the light or the skip, because that definitely will make things a little more challenging. But for my money, glide roll, throw it up through this gap, filter down. See, even right there, I didn't even make it all the way through. That was actually my recoil. So got me a little short, but a pretty easy hole, to be honest with you. Nothing too bad. You definitely should not be doing anything worse than a par. All right, hole 3. This is where the course kind of kicks into gear and gives you not necessarily challenges, but definitely if you're trying to be aggressive in eagle holes, most definitely a challenge. All right, so what I like to do, that is a Light Glide Ballista Pro. I'll throw a forehand flex and just try to get it anywhere down in this open area. I'm within 260, and you really have to familiarize yourself with the hole, because that was a pretty easy approach shot, but you have to know where the trees are, which trees are going to get in your way, where the columns are around the basket, which ones are not tall, which ones are shorter, how the ground is sloped. So overall, like right here, this is 371. There's actually kind of a cool route here where I can play it off the hill. Now it's risky because it could kick off those and go in the water, but that is a nice weapon to have at your disposal. If you get stuck to the right and you just don't have an angle, just kick it off that hillside. But again, you do need a skip disc. So that's right there. Same shot as my first one, but that was with the Ballista Pro, the Glide Skip. And oh boy, that was... So if you're going to run that, that's a good example right there where I ran it. That, let's be honest, that one probably should have kicked back out of bounds. That was not a smart move. So let's try that again. And if you're going to do that, you got to put a huge flex on that. Otherwise, if you aim too high, it will come out of it. And if you end up over here, I mean, 144 feet is very reasonable for me. This is normally a forehand keystone shot. That's too high. I was a little off on my power. But I felt if I did the forehand keystone, which has a little lower trajectory, I was going to bring that bridge into play. So I kind of avoided that. All right, wind to 3. This one I should be able to just crank. And I've actually made it all the way to the basket area. I think the closest I've been is within about 50 feet. I've made it across there and skipped to the right. I've seen some get really close. Oh, so that one I had to kind of throw around. But overall, if you play this smart, I don't recommend, if you're playing this for birdie, to use your skip disc. Just use the Light Glide. So here, that is actually my skip recoil, and I'm way back here. So this is another example where I don't really feel like I have a shot down the middle. So I'm going to do my Glide Skip Ballista Pro, kick it off there. And that's going to take some practice. If you have not done that, don't try to do that for your first time in like a pro tour or a multiplayer, whenever they add this course to those. If you try to do it for your first time when it counts, you can really mess it up. So just try it out, have some fun with it. And so now I'm way back here. There is really no way to get to this. So I'm actually going to play a skip. Oh, that was bad. I was trying to play a forehand skip out wide and hope to skip it over the water, and I was not able to get it. And that is going to be a par. So if you play this smart, and I like the Light Glide, especially because you can throw it up over the trees. And if you want to, you could actually throw a musket. So right there, that's a musket. I don't know if I can get the musket all the way across. I guess there's a gap right there. Is it going to make it? Is it going to? Nope, didn't make it. So that's one where if I played that smart, I probably would have laid it up short of the water and tried to throw it in, but Yeah, laying up is not for these videos. Now, if you want to get super, super aggressive, and this did not really work, there's kind of a route you can throw up on the hillside, and that is inbound. So there's some area over there. It's kind of hard to land it there, but there is some area to the right of that water you can land and still be safe. Now, it's not easy to get to that point, but it is very, very doable if you get a good break. So wind to 3, this is probably the hardest wind. That was not a good shot. Because that left to right wind, right there, I would never, if it really counted, I would never use a skip disc. Just because the wind is already blowing it to the water, and if you're off just by a hair, you're not going to get that to land on the left side of the land in most cases. And then I guess you could always try a roller. That is actually the first time I've ever tried a roller on this hole. So please don't mock me for that being awful. See if I can actually get a birdie out of this. Oh, wow. Oh, no, I'm behind it. Oh, okay, no, I can straddle. Yeah, that was completely lucky. Yeah, good stuff. Pretty good hole. I like that one. Hole 4, I know there's a lot of people that don't like this hole design, and I'm starting to come around to the reasons why they don't like it. So we'll kind of look at a couple different approaches and why this hole might need some tweaking. So most people, when they see a hole like this, they're going to try, it's an island hole, they're going to try to land it on the island. And right there, I threw my recoil. Got the birdie, no worries. But the tree did help me. And then one of the options, too, I've messed around with is doing my roll glide Ballista Pro. Again, throwing it a little higher. That was a wind to 3. That was tough. I landed on the island. I got birdies both times. And then in very rare instances, so here you got a cross tail wind to 3, you can throw the accurate glide musket, but it's still really hard to land on that island. You can get your birdie out of it, but the reason I think this hole needs a little bit of tweaking, I've had some discussions with a couple players, is you can play the short play over here to the land, and if you're proficient at it, you can get yourself a throw in from anywhere from 80 to about 120, depending on where you land. So in these instances, I'm throwing the accurate wind musket. You got to be careful. It bounces off the hill. It can very easily slide into the water, but you can use those rocks as kind of a backdrop to slow you down a little bit. So each time here, that's 2 in a row by not even going for the island. Throw-ins from under 100. There's a third one, almost the exact same spot. Now, if you get winds of 3, yes, it'll make the throw-in harder. If you miss it, you can go into the water. But you can very easily get a reasonable throw-in. And so right there, that's one of the problems you can run into. So if you kind of misthrow that, but that's something I haven't practiced a ton. But if you practice it enough, you're probably not going to land in the water. And so that one, again, that was not good. I used my Explorer there. But that makes this a pretty easy shot. But you do have to be good at throw-ins. So I've had some talks with people about what's the solution. Do you make the hold longer? Do you make that area off to the left out of bounds? That's an option too, whatever. And maybe this is how Per designed this. You know, he wanted to be able to, it was actually a couple other people, but maybe they wanted to have this little landing area. And see, that can happen. You can hit off there, miss your shot, and get a bogey. I don't think there's really an opportunity for huge scores on this if you play it smart. Like right here, if you want to, you can lay it up short and then actually putt it. That was really bad. But you can putt it onto the green or the island area and then just putt it again. So you can, if you're playing for par, you can very, very easily get a par without ever having to go for the island. So here you can play it out to the left. And if you're inside that bush, the collision will not affect you. And then if you want, you can just lay it up. So right there, I just putted that up there. Now, normally I wouldn't putt it. I would actually go for the throw-in, but you could very easily just lay it up there, get your par, and get out. Now, another option is you can go for this far island over here, and there is some out of bounds. The problem is you're 160, and I'm going to go forehand fuse. Boom! Which is money. But again, you're throwing from 160 versus throwing in from 80 on this other side. And if you really want, just go at the hole. Try to get a hole in one. If you go long, easy comeback putt, boom, you got your par. So even though this seems like a tricky hole, it's really not that bad. Which leads us into hole 5, and I love this hole. I don't care if it's in the game or real life. I love shorter par fours that require position golf. You have to throw it in a certain spot to give yourself an angle, and this is just a great one. I mean, so I'm going to start off with the forehand light glide Ballista Pro, and it's just you have to hit the initial gap. You've got to make sure you get far enough down there, and then you've got to give yourself an angle into the green, which is surrounded by water. It's a great hole, but there's so much room for disaster here. One of the problems I have, so let's say you hit right there, you're in trouble. And the best thing to do is then just throw it down on this island right here, which is very manageable, and you still got yourself a chance at par, or in this case, birdie. So, I mean, it's like, it's there if you play it smart, but this is definitely one you don't want to go into blind. You really want to know the angles and the landing spots. Like right there, that's perfect. And I could run that. The problem with running this is it's downhill and there's really no backdrop there. I mean, you could hit those little stones, but most of the time when you hit those, you're going in the water, whether it be directly in it or rolling. So right here, I threw my wind skip recoil and it worked perfectly. I will tell you that the skip recoil does not always get far enough down there. I've tried that a few times and it's just not always going to get down to where I wanted. But the real fun in this hole is not the birdie. The fun comes into play when you're trying to eagle this one. So I'm going to put in a couple discs that I don't normally throw. The Light Skip Ballista and the Light Skip Ballista Pro. Now, as you see me swapping these in, the reason I'm choosing Light Skip is because light discs have a higher trajectory. And so it'll kind of pop it up in the air a little more. It basically gives it a little more chance to drop down and make the corner. And then obviously the skip is to give me a little more distance. So we're going to start with the Light Skip Ballista Pro. And the idea here is to aim left and skip it, and that was not good. But the idea is to get it to skip around the corner. I need that to skip and go a little higher. And I tried to run that, which I probably shouldn't have. So we ended up with a bogey here. But again, this is not the safe play. This is the more aggressive if it shows up in the daily. Let's see if we can do this again. There we go. And so you want to skip and then get around the corner somewhere down in here. And now you've got yourself an eagle look. Now you will have to practice your throw-ins. So right there, that was my forehand keystone, but it's there. So again, the light is meant to give you a little more height. So you can do that and then skip and stay. All right, so right there. So now that was 170, which is a little out of my keystone range. So that was a fuse. But that's the whole point, is to get that. Now, I actually find that the Ballista Pro does not work as well as the Ballista, because the Ballista will turn a little bit. Oh, just missed the water. But I mean, that is the fun. And you can experiment with some different discs if you want to do like turn skip or a fade skip Ballista or something like that. It's fun to try. Now, you could end up with some crappy results, like ending up right there. So you got to be careful when you try this, but you can always lay up down into this area and then get yourself a throw in. As with most of the other holes in this game, you got to be proficient at throw-ins. So something to mess around with. All right, hole 6. Again, love this hole. This reminds me a lot of Crow's Nest hole 9. Now, some of you may not see the correlation, but bear with me for a little bit. So your first shot, you're going to play around the corner here. The only real problem is that spike right there. You want to avoid that. But the idea is you leave yourself in the landing area here, and then you've got an uphill second shot for throwing. And that's why it reminds me a lot of Crow's Nest hole 9, because you're trying to land on those ledges. Obviously, you can land on the right one, but you're really trying to land on the left ledge, and then you've got an uphill shot for eagle. Now, the distances aren't quite the same, but the idea is. And so my goal here is just to kind of play a nice skip shot, and that was nowhere near far enough, so it didn't really give me a look. But the idea is just to play it somewhere down in there, give yourself a 190 to 220 foot throwing opportunity, and then this is where I use my accurate roll Explorer. Now, another option is you can throw over here to the left, but I don't really see a purpose, because now I'm 330 feet out. It's just a much, much, much further shot, and you've got a backdrop there, so it just makes a whole lot more sense to throw the forehand out to the right, give yourself a throw-in opportunity, and you can go low like this, but see, that was just really, really, really bad luck. But you've got a backdrop up there. Like, you can just slam the disc. Damn, I almost made that. Slam the disc up there, and you are probably going to have a putt or an easy throw-in. So that's why I really, really, really like this hole. And even here, if you don't have the Glide Skip Ballista Pro, you can throw the recoil. And this is a really, really, really easy birdie, in my opinion. Like, there's really no reason, unless you do something stupid, to not get a birdie on this. The only times I've not really got a birdie are when I'm messing around, or if I don't throw it wide enough or high enough and I clip those little spikes in the ground. You get your cave dwelling creatures here, the stalactites and your stalagmites and all that stuff. But if you get yourself in a good position, you can have a reasonable run in it, and then right there you've got a 61 footer coming back. So pretty straightforward hole. I really don't have a lot else to share there. Easy birdie. Hole 7, on the other hand, is not an easy birdie for many people. I know I've heard I've talked to a couple people that want to put like a Mando in this and force you to go up the gut. I love throwing the accurate wind musket and just let it sail down. And that wasn't even a good shot. I actually turned that over a little more than I wanted, and it still ended perfectly down there. And the reason I like the accurate wind musket, you'll see here in a little bit, I'll throw a couple of these, is number one, you are down in a cave. So you're underground. And I don't know how many people notice this, but the wind is always 1. You're never going to get winds of 2, 3, and 4 on this. So you know the wind of 1 is not going to have a significant impact. Number 2 is if you throw the accurate glide musket, it has a tendency to go a little too far. Now that one right there was not a good shot. I did not turn my drive over enough. And that's one thing you got to watch out on this hole. There is a little elevation change. So right there, I think from that far left side, your second shot is slightly uphill. Now watch what happens. This is the exact same shot, but with the accurate glide musket. And you'll watch what happens. It goes much quicker. And I don't know about you guys, but there's been multiple times where I've gone way too long and it slides up along those bones and goes right up out of bounds. So that is one of the reasons where I am not a big fan of throwing the accurate glide musket. But for some of you, that's what you got in the bag. So just be prepared for some of those instances where you think you have a good shot and it just does not work out for you. It could be a skip long. It could be hitting the top on the wide right. It's just a lot of bad things can happen. The alternative is to go forehand. And so that was the accurate glide forehand, which works, but I think your margin for error is much, much smaller on that. So I personally don't like the forehand. And I hope they never change this hole to make you go up the middle. I just think there's a lot of ways you can handle this hole, and I don't think you need to force people down the middle. So that was a recoil, just to kind of show you guys what the shot from the drop zone will look like. So I've got my 2 putters, accurate sticky keystone and accurate glide pure. I don't know if you're trying to make this shot, but it's just an accurate glide pure from the drop zone. So here, let me intentionally throw it out of bounds to show you that was supposed to be quick, not a roller. So from here, I'm going to try and mess around with the forehand. All right, so that actually might work. So let's try that again. All right, so there is a forehand fuse option there if you want to go from the drop zone. It looks like it does kind of grab the grass, grab the sand, slows it down a little bit so you can kind of tweak it a little bit. It looks like you have to aim a little to the right. That was not far enough. But that's not something I'm going to spend an hour on here showing you guys that. You can mess around with it, but it's a putter or a forehand fuse shot. To get you down there. But for my money, it's just this route right here. Accurate wind. Oh, that's a perfect way to end. Accurate wind, musket, wide right all day. Which leads us into a couple tricky holes. So hole 8, second longest hole in the game, I believe, behind only Frozen Valley number 2. I forget the exact number. It'll pop up here in a second, like 1370, just under 1,400 feet. So tee shot, elevated down into an opening. You got some water right, OB tunnel left, water snaking across a little bit. Now, I'm going to kind of approach this a different way. And that right there was actually my accurate windbreak musket. And I want to show you guys that you really, if you're going for birdie, you don't have to do a lot of crazy stuff here. So right now, I just threw my accurate wind musket off the tee. That was my Light Glide Ballista Pro. Nothing special there. And then it leaves you kind of an easy shot in here with whatever disc you want to throw. You can throw a recoil. You can throw some other ones. But if you're playing for birdie, there's some smart ways to do this. So again, turn over your musket. Leave it down here somewhere. You're not bringing the water into play. I did figure out if you use the accurate glide musket and turn it over too much, it will make it to that water. So second shot, if you get a little more aggressive, that was my Glide Skip Ballista Pro. You can get yourself within 300, 320, 350. So here, I'm actually going to throw my Explorer, lay it up, easy tap in. So there's ways that if you're playing for birdie, you can get this hole very, very easily. Now, the alternative is if you want to get a little more aggressive, you have to disc up a little bit. And by disking up, you're bringing in a lot of the OB that's not in play for the short shots. It's going to come into play for your longer ones. And that's just the nature of the beast. That's why I was kind of torn on this hole. I didn't know if I liked it or hated it, but after I started playing it a little more, man, that was an amazing roll. Jeez, I like it because it's a risk reward. Like if you really want to go for eagle, you're going to have to get aggressive. And so right here, I disc up. So with the left to right window 3, and that's, that is out of bounds in that tunnel, by the way. So that was my Glide Skip Ballista Pro. But even there, that was a pretty good one, and I'm still 600 plus out. My plan, and that was not a good one, on my second shot is to try to use the skip disc. Man, I love those throw-ins. I absolutely love those throw-ins. But my second shot is to leave it left of the train tracks that are up there and then have it skip. I don't want to land in those because it does kind of bite. And that was such a good drive. Geez, so that's the risk of throwing the Glide Skip Ballista Pro, is you're going to bring those into play. So right here, I just played to the right of the tracks. I'm able to get my birdie, which you're not always able to do. But a good second shot will be left of those train tracks, skip up right along the wall, and maybe get a roll towards the basket. Now, if you want to mix it up a little bit and throw some different ones like that right there, just on the rock. So there's that risk reward. You want to bring that into play, that's great. It gives you a shorter second shot. But for me, if you're going to go for it, you got to go for it. You can't just try to barely clear that water. If you're going to go at it, you want to crank that bad boy across the water. But to do that, you need very specific discs. So this is where I've been using the same bag for all 7 holes thus far. For hole 8, I'm going to tweak it a little bit, and I'm going to add 2 discs that some of you already have in your main bag. So the first disc is a Turn Glide Ballista Pro, which I really, really like. It's right on the cusp of making my final 8 discs there. And then the Skip Turn Ballista Pro. Obviously, my utility discs, I got the putters and the fuse, but those 2 right there, I would seriously consider adding to your bag if you're playing this course, because right here, you can turn it and it'll hold that line a little more, and that was just really, really, really bad luck. I'm going to restart that. But so this is the turn skip, is if you play it wide enough, and even that one's not that great. Hit something. Oh, yay. So you see the risk, even with a turn skip disc and a left to right window 3, you really got to put some turn on that. And that's better. And then, wow, that's really good. So see what happens if you can get a hold of it, and you really got to practice this. I'm now in easy range, and that is not... Oh, okay, that'll work. And so I actually do like playing into the hillside a little bit there to the left. So I just completely take out the water. It's not even in my thought process. That one, I don't know if that's going to be too much. Yeah. So these are not perfect. I didn't try to record something where I had like 5 or 10 shots in a row that were all perfect to show you that, this is an easy hole. Because it's not. If you want to get aggressive, you're really going to have to work at it. I'm just giving you some ideas. So the Glide Skip Ballista Pro maybe had a little too much left finish. Even these turn discs. So here we've got a right to left window 3. I'm really going to have to crank that one over to get it to not go in that out of bounds. And see, that didn't even make it across the water. If you do that, you can still salvage a little bit, but you got to get a really good second shot, which that was not. And so we're 350 out. We're playing for par. And honestly, that's the risk you run. You want to go for eagle. You're probably going to get some pars. You're probably going to get some bogeys. You're going to have some bad shots. It is what it is. And so now let's try the glide turn. And this one on the fly should be able to clear the water if I get a good shot, and it did. And this is the bonus. Wow, that was really good. I was hoping to get a better finish there, but you don't have to worry about it skipping in that tunnel to the left. And that was probably too much. I used the same disc, the glide turn, for both the drive and the second. It's probably a little too much disc for that second shot, but having some fun with it. Left to right window 3. Oh, that could be good. Get across. Oh, that is going to be skip. Wow, that's really nice. Other than doing some of the crazy stuff, if you want to know, this is actually the hole that people are throwing almost 1,400 feet. I've actually, my longest drive on this hole is like 1,390 something, where you kind of have to glitch your way up on top of the tee here. So actually above us on the rock formation, you can get a little more height, and you can get some really crazy drives. But short of doing that, you can still get some really big ones. But even when you get these big ones, you still got to do a good second shot. So right there, we're trying to avoid the water, which is close. And I just like this hole. This is one where if you decide to tweak your bag a little bit and throw those turn drivers in there, that's great, but you got to practice. So all of you that are looking at this as a video to give you like quick fixes and guaranteed eagles, there is no guaranteed eagle on this hole. I mean, you're not going to play this 20 times in a row and get 20 eagles unless you really, really try. I guarantee there is no one in the game that's going to play this first time and get 20 eagles in a row. You're going to have to practice. And that's what the practice mode, for those of you that have been around for a while, you know the practice mode is amazing. It's nice to be able to go to one specific hole and not have to hope it pops up in some of the other formats. All right, transition over to hole 9, and this is a very challenging hole to end on, especially if you don't have the big drivers, because there's really no easy, safe play to get a guaranteed birdie. If you play short, which I'm not going to do right off the bat here, my play is the glide skip Ballista Pro. I aim a little lower, and I try to hit this right gap, and that's perfect. That'll actually give me a chance to run it. And you got to watch the teeth that are coming up on the ground, because I do want to run this, but it is very easy to hit those teeth and roll back. Or if you go too far up in the throat there of the creature, you can have one where you can't even throw out. It'll just deflect you straight down, like it does in a couple other courses. But that's my goal. Sometimes you miss it. I missed my line there, but I still ended up in a good spot. If you're not comfortable with the skip drivers, you want something a little more consistent, you might want to try your light glide Ballista Pro if you have it. Most other discs aren't going to make it to that second island. And so if you throw your light glide, you got to be aware that it does have a slightly different flight pattern. And I don't know how in the world that did not go in the water. But the key is that you can control the skip a little bit. And so this one, light glide, and then another driver up. I mean, you can do this. You can also get some awkward circle one putts. Even if you're up there, you could be behind one of those teeth, which is not fun. And let's do another one of those. That's a little left. That's, oof. Hits those trees and goes out of bounds. You're in the land of par or bogey. That is not going to end well for you. So I actually like, if I can get up to that spot where I was right there or a little closer, I will run it with either my musket or maybe the Explorer. So here we got a wind of 3, and that's not going to get through. Don't go out of bounds. Oh, that was pretty fortunate. So you really got to, I think this hole really tests your ability to read wind and elevation, because it is downhill and you are going to get winds of 2 and 3. You've really got to figure out what's going on. So this will test your knowledge of wind and elevation. And I'm sure some of you, see, that was just bad luck right there. Some of you who've played this course trying to get 3 stars, and you've had a good 3-star round coming into this hole, and then you just tank the drive. You do something like I did right there on the drive, hit a tree and bounce in, but you really, really, really need to use your big drivers. Now, for those of you that are saying, well, I can do really well on this without my big drivers, without your big drivers, you're going to get shots like that. You're just not going to get it to where you need to go. Now, some of you may say, well, what about that island to the right? Can you throw there? And I'll actually show you a couple shots that, yes, you can make that island without the big drivers, but then your second shot is going to need something big. And so wind of 3 here. Why don't we try one more turnover shot? And that was not great, but I was able to land it on the island. So just, if you want, go back through and watch some of these drives. I tried to use some different discs, different winds, different angles to show you how you can land it on that particular island. Now, if you want to mix things up a little bit, you can try, like that was, go, 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 go. Okay, that made it. That was actually the turn glide, I believe, that I used on hole 8. And it works. It'll give you a little more consistency. It doesn't give you the skip, and I'm kind of rushing these, so that was not a good shot. But for those of you that don't really have the discs that you want to use, again, I'm just going to do 1 or 2 more here, that you want to use, your option then is to go for that right island, which you're still going to want to get a lot of distance. It's deceptively long. Like I'm going to show you here in a little bit, you can throw the roll glide ballista pro, but you still got to give it a good throw to get it on that island. But then the problem is your second shot is going to be significantly longer. So that right there was actually my musket and didn't skip up. And right here we're 600 plus out. And so now the problem is I can throw my skip disc, but you have to get the angle perfect. And that was pretty good. Not quite as far up as I wanted. I'm kind of rushing this, so hopefully I don't leave it short. Okay, is you're going to have a long second shot, and you really got to watch using your skip disc on that second shot, or you're not going to make the island. It will. Let me rephrase it. You'll make the island, but it'll skip down to the right or the left, and you'll not get your shot. I've actually had ones roll all the way down in the water. So see right there. I mean, you can leave yourself short and give yourself a throw in. So I guess if you're playing for par, you could play that short island and then play another shorty and then lay it up and get your par. But most of you, when you get to this point, are not going to be playing for par. Maybe kick it off the island here. Oh God, that was so lucky. I was actually trying to do that, but I didn't think it would actually work. But most of you are not going to be playing for birdie, for par. You're going to need a birdie on this to get your 3 stars. So most people are not going to take the conservative approach. You could also get a little funky here and try a huge flex hyzer. Is that going to make it? Oh, it did. Crazy. I don't know if that's probably the best way to do that, but it's kind of fun to do that. If you go back through my channel, I did post a 3-star round. So if you want to see what a 3-star round looks like, you can do that. Or I decided to go ahead and do kind of a conservative 3-star round right here, and you guys can see what that would look like and what shots I actually, because I just gave you a walkthrough of all the holes, but now you can see what shots I'll actually use. So right here, and this is going to feel really, really slow because my entire video has been double speed, and so that felt like really, really, really slow, but this is just standard speed. So hole 1, I use my roll glide ballista pro, even with a left to right wind of 3, and I was able to put it right up there. Hole 2, headwind of 2. Now remember what I said, if I get a headwind, I'm going to bump up to my light glide ballista pro, and it just flies much, much better, and I'll fight through that. And I think it's not really giving me that much more distance, but the light is giving me a little more elevation, so I can kind of pop over the edge of that opening and get myself down there. So 2 for 2. Hole 3, we've got a right to left wind of 2. Now, again, I could get aggressive. I can get conservative here. I'm going to go ahead and throw my light glide ballista pro just because I'm not going to try to get stupid here. And that was not a good shot. That was very, very fortunate. And if that was the glide skip, that would most certainly be in the water. So that's one of the things you could do to be a little more conservative. It did have a little gap here, and this is where I like using my accurate roll explorer. I can just kind of punch it through these little gaps and know that it'll just check up and grabs the ground like Velcro. Easy birdie. If you're trying to get a 3-star on this, you probably want to go for eagle on that one if you can, but you don't have to. 3 stars on this is just all birdies, but you got to know that there's a couple tricky holes coming up. Specifically, honestly, I think this is probably one of the harder... Oh, don't go in the water. This is probably one of the harder holes because it's hard to land on the island. If you don't want to land on the island, you want to do what I just did there. You have to be careful on your first shot to make sure you land it in the right place. And even if you do land it in the right place, you have to then make sure you get a good throw in, which with a wind of 3 is not always a gimme. So that's not an easy hole. I bet that's the hole that's given most people problems when they first start their 3-star rounds. And then hole 5, exactly where I wanted to be, hang it out to the right, give myself an angle. And this one, I'm just going to kind of turn it over a little too high, but I'm just trying to land anywhere down there, give myself an easy putt. And that's an easy way to play that for birdie. Again, if you want to get a little more aggressive, go back and watch hole 5. You can do the light skips or the ballista pro and try to get down there, but not worth it when you're just doing a regular round. Now, this is one I would say is also a very, very good eagle opportunity. So if you're trying to eagle some holes, hole 3, hole 6, and hole 8 would probably be the ones you're going to try to eagle. And there are some other ones out there that you may get, but those are the 3. So right here, 221. This is an explorer shot. That might be a little too much. Yeah, not bad. A little high, but I was at least lined up correctly. But again, easy, as I said before when I did the walkthrough this hole, very easy to get a birdie on this one. You should be eagle running that most every time. And if you don't get it, you should be birdieing it every time. This one, on the other hand, so hole 4 was probably one of the hardest ones. This is another one that I think is going to get a lot of people because you have to trust the turnover. Like right there, there's my accurate wind musket. You just got to trust the turnover. And, oh, is that not enough? Okay, we should be good. And that one kind of took off a little bit. So right there, that's a good example that if I threw the accurate glide, that probably would have slid up that bone and gone right over the top out of bounds. Now, I remembered and I learned that shot right there, you got to give a little bit more because it is uphill ever so slightly. So you got to give it a little more oomph. This one I could probably play for birdie, but oh boy. Nah, wind to 3, we're going for it. Let's do it. All right, glide skip, Ballista Pro. Huge. Oh boy, that's trash. That's going to be in the water. God. Skip off. Just get over. No, that's going to be right in the water. Oh, at least it made the far side, so I might be able to get up and down here for birdie. Let's see what we can do. And again, I want to get over the tracks. Oh, I actually wanted to land on the other side of the tracks. Oh, great roll. Oh, that's going to be in forehand range. What's the distance? 118. This is forehand keystone. I think we can do this. Wind to 3. Boom. Now, what I really should have done for this walkthrough was just do my musket, because I told you if you want a birdie, just do the musket. But I kind of wanted to get the eagle to show off, and that was not a smart move. All right, wind to 3, I got to be careful. I got to really turn this one over so the wind doesn't carry it into the water, and that should be perfect. Yeah, we are good. That's how you end it. Heck, we might even get an eagle look here. I don't want to do anything stupid, but maybe we try. I don't know. Let's have a little fun here. Do the keystone to try to throw it in as long as I don't mess it up. All right, that's perfect. And there you go. That is the Lost Island walkthrough. There is a 9-under 3-star round, even with not playing very smart on hole 8. And hopefully this gives you some ideas. Again, this is not an exhaustive list of all the different crazy shots you can do. It'll just give you some ideas, and hopefully this will get the Ballista Pros, give you a good chance to get your 3 stars and get some cool discs. So hopefully you enjoyed, and let me know in the comments your feedback if you got anything out of it.